Welcome to the Serious Writer. Today's guest is the extraordinary woman, Chandra Gerson. She's the founder of Kitten Cat Production and is a multiple award-winning screenwriter with a crowded IMDb page. Back in her college days, she interned at companies such as CBS, Entertainment Tonight, and NBC, just to mention a few. Later on, she started taking acting classes, which resulted in her writing her first short film, which was about domestic violence. Most recently, it was just announced by the Los Angeles Motion Picture Festival / International Film Awards that she won several gold and silver awards, including the Gold Award for Best Feature Screenplay and the Gold Award for Short Best Screenplay. In this interview, we will discover how Chandra writes an award-winning screenplay and hopefully help you to do the same. So pay attention. Chandra, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute blast. I'm super excited that you're here and super impressed by everything you've done. And
thank you.
I'm very excited about getting to know you a little better. But first of all, how did it feel receiving the news that you had won several awards at the LA Motion Picture Festival this year?
It always feels great. I mean, who doesn't feel fantastic to be recognized for something, that you love to do? I mean, so yeah.
Now I know this is not the first time you've won awards. Did it feel different this time, or was it just like, how does it feel keep getting nominated, like winning, I should say?
It's always, I don't mean to sound cliche, but I mean, it really truly always is. Being recognized is just, it's just great, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, every time it's special, because, I mean, again, it sounds cliche, but it's like, your scripts are your babies. And I think that's true of any writer. So.
I think you're absolutely right. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, now, like, I know you have a background in broadcast journalism and that you have some experience with acting. But what compelled you to become a screenwriter, and how did that entire endeavor come about?
Well, that kind of came in ass backwards, if I can say that. I always wanted to be an actor, and I always wanted to act. And when I was little, I went to an acting camp, and I came back and I told my mom, this is what I want to do. And she's a huge educator. And so she was like, I don't think so. You're going to get, you're going to finish school. You're going to get a college education, all that. And so I did all that. And then I think I was like around 34. And it was like, I got my AA degree. I got my BA degree in broadcast journalism. And it was just like, I'm living my life for everybody but me, and it's time. I really, really want to see if I can do this. And I didn't know anybody. So I just went into extra work. And 5 months later, I got my SAG card and I took acting classes. And in the acting class with Gene and Tony Bua, you could write scenes in class. And so I started doing that. And then there was another student who wrote an amazing documentary, and his name is Chase Matthews, and he's an amazing actor as well. And so he submitted it to a bunch of festivals. And I thought to myself, you know what? I could do that, I mean, I want to try that, not a documentary, but like a short film or something like that. And so I just started writing, these short films, and I fell in love with being behind the scenes. But at that time, I wanted to direct and make films. I wasn't fully in love with writing yet. And so as time went by, the expectation of the quality of production went up. And when quality of production goes up, so does money. And it just got to a point after my first feature film, Book of Choices, after that was made, it was just like, I can't do this anymore. It's just too expensive. And Book of Choices was like on shoestring and spit, and so basically what happened was I really started focusing on writing because I always liked it. I just wasn't really in love with it, and it's like meeting somebody and you start dating them and then you like fall in love with them. So it was kind of like that type of thing. And now I found my path through all these different rooms, going through all these different rooms. So, and here we are, and I'm in love with screenwriting now. And I feel most at home here. I felt at home, wanting to direct and filmmaking and everything, but sometimes life throws you things, and you either give up or you find another it's just a whole process of trying to find yourself.
Absolutely. I hear you. Can you tell us a little bit about your production company you founded?
Kitten Cat Productions, because I wanted to be a director, but because nobody knew who I was, I had to write and make my own films. So I figured, why not start my own production company? And so it wasn't like a production company where, it was like, I think they're called LLCs or something like that. It was just do business as. It was like a DBA. And so I just registered it, and that was that, because I really thought that this is where I was gonna be, and once I proved myself, first through short films and then through feature films, that I could hopefully really start having a career. And it was interesting because while I was doing that, I actually wrote a friend of mine, actually one of my photographers, came to me because he had an idea and we were talking about it, and he had like a treatment idea. And so I wrote the script and then he made it. And so it was like, I was actually I got a job writing for someone else before I was even thought about being a writer, So I probably should have taken that as a sign, but.
When did that happen?
That happened while I was filming and making Book of Choices, because Book of Choices was my first feature film, my first and only feature film that, because I did everything except the technical end.
Wow, so you made everything from, like, you wrote it and you directed Book of Choice. Oh, wow, interesting. Do you have would you recommend new writers or aspiring screenwriters to go out and make their own stuff?
Sure, if that's what they want to do. It's expensive. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but the only way to really learn is to just go out there and do it, I mean, unless you can afford film school, but a lot of people can't,
Definitely.
And I didn't know, in all honesty, I didn't know what I was doing. I got a lot of help from my photographers and from the people that I hired, and I learned a lot from them, each and every one of them. So I'm very, very grateful and very blessed to have had the crews that I had.
It's super inspiring to listen to, and I think everyone out there should definitely consider making their own stuff if they can. If you're like me, I prefer just to write the screenplay and pass them on to someone who knows, because I'm just a writer. But I have too much respect for the other writers like yourself who just we're gonna make it ourselves. I so inspiring, and that's also, again, probably one of the fastest way to get the ball rolling. So definitely, everyone, you should definitely check mark that and remember it. So Chandra, what is your definition of a great screenplay? And to you, what goes into writing a screenplay that can be recognized at festivals and win competitions?
That is a very, very tough question. I would say, first and foremost, what I've heard time and time again is that it just has to be a great story. There are too many other factors involved, I think, personally. And again, I don't have a tremendous amount of experience. There are a lot of people out there that are much more experienced than I am. But through my experience, a great story is what it really comes down to. I mean, granted, the format has to be correct, because if it's not, it's going to totally be disqualified. And you can find all that information out in books and online and all that. But other than that, it's really just a great story, because there are so many factors as to why a script won't be taken. Even if you do write a great screenplay, it could be accepted by one festival and turned down by another. And that's happened to me. And it's like, and then you're left wondering, well, wait a minute. If it's good enough to be accepted by one, it should be good enough to be accepted by all of them. And that's not the case. A lot of it comes down to what the readers want, what the festival wants. I mean, you can't really say this is what it takes from what I know, and from what, in my experience, my limited experience, is I have yet to find. To me, that's the golden key. If you find out, please let me know. But I think just a really, really great story, and of course, writing it in the great format, being, and, just as a writer, having a small amount of people that you can rely on and trust your work with, to help you build that. But other than that, that's really all I can say.
Do you have like do you have like, now you've entered a couple of competitions and with good results so far, like, do you have any type of process, or that you like how to make these, like, mostly you make short films, but also features like Avarice? I don't know if I said that title right,
Avarice that's just that's a feature film, but it's a screenplay.
Yeah. How did you, so when writing that, how did you start writing? How did you choose the idea, or how did you and how did you know, did you just I have an idea, I'm just going to write it? Did you plan it out? What did you consider when planning it out, or when writing it? How did you rewrite it? Anything you can tell us about the process would be really helpful, I think.
Well, the idea came to me, and a lot of my screenplays have been written differently, because I think that every screenplay kind of deserves, and also sometimes writes itself, and I think the process is different sometimes, and you have to go with the flow as a writer. But with Avarice, because there's a couple of storylines, it's not just one storyline. There's a couple of storylines with characters going on, so it's like multi-layered, and they're all interconnected. So with me, it was like a lot of outlining, and I think it's something that you should do anyway, just at least a general outline, but sometimes, writing free flow, and just writing it and then going back and filling it in sometimes works too. But with Avarice, I keep going off on a tangent, I'm sorry.
This is great.
With Avarice, it was pretty much outlining everything. And once I got started, I was very, very blessed with the fact that I didn't get stuck. It just all came to me, and it didn't take long to write. And then, I put it aside for several days and let it breathe and give myself a rest and then come back to it. I work with a consultant. So when I'm done with my first draft, I take it to her and we talk about it. And a lot of times, I'm sure you know this as a writer, when you talk things out, that gets the creative juices flowing. And a second pair of eyes is always great. So I always recommend, if you don't have anybody, or even if you do, starting off by getting feedback from festivals is always great. I keep jumping around. I'm sorry. And then, and then I go back, and then I go back after working with my consultant, and I just make the necessary changes or whatever, it's just, I think with writing, it's just like any muscle. The more you do it, the better you'll get,
100%. How, like, when you first, like, can you remember the first time you asked for help, like asking a consultant to help you? Can you remember how that felt? And like, I know that I had it myself as well when the first time I had to pay someone to help me, and I have seen in various Facebook groups that a lot of people are kind of like, well, first of all, they're skeptical, and also they're a bit afraid that what is this other person going to say? Will they like my script, and will they even understand it? Do you have any thoughts on that, like, and based on your own experience?
Yeah, definitely. I want to start off first off with saying that I believe that everybody has a window of honesty within them. And if they trust themselves and listen to that window of honesty, then that will really help them in their journey. Because when I wrote Impaired Innocence, which was the domestic violence one that you were talking about, I submitted it it got to a point where I knew that more needed to be done with it. But where I was, I had no idea what to do. I was stuck. But I knew that it could be better. You know what I'm saying? It's just that gut feeling. But since I wasn't, I had never taken classes. I just didn't know what else to do with it. So I actually submitted it for feedback so that I could figure out where I went wrong or what's right, to get general feedback from. And I submitted it. One of the places I submitted it to was Slam Dance. And I found out through Slam Dance that they have a clinic, and they have some really, really amazing consultants. And that's how I found my consultant. And when we met, boom, it was like everything. I mean, she taught me things. I would not be where I am today without her, because there was a big block. Because before, when I tried taking writing classes, and there's a whole writing school of thought that's all centered on academics. And I don't do well with discipline. That's just me. And personally, I think if you focus too much on the academics, that's going to crush your creativity. If you worry too much about what has to be done in Act 1 and such has to happen by page 50 and all this other stuff, how can you be creative when you're focusing on trying to meet all this academic stuff? That's my opinion, at least. To me, I think, and it goes back to what I said in the very, very beginning, that all it comes down to is really a great, great story. And when you have a great story, it takes care of itself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think.
So that's so. Did I answer your question?
No, it's great. It's very powerful stuff.
Okay.
Maybe we should talk a little bit, just like, what does it take? Like, and it's a little broad and maybe hard to answer, but
Okay.
what does it take to? How do you know when you have a great story?
I think it goes back to that window of honesty and trusting yourself, and then of course also, getting feedback from people that you trust. But I mean, I really, really honestly believe it's having faith in yourself. I think there's just, when your script is finished. Because really, in all honesty, a script can be written a nauseam amount of times. I mean, you can write one script for 15 years. Always new ideas can come and all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes if you work too long on a script, or if you do too much, sometimes it can end up hurting that script. If you're looking for that quote unquote perfect script, first off, I don't think that there's I don't think a perfect script exists, because human beings aren't perfect. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But great stories can definitely exist. I mean, and I think it's just a matter of trusting yourself. And I think deep down inside, when your script is finished.
Mm.
And it's a personal thing that I think only a writer can really understand when you reach that point. And maybe people are probably thinking I'm crazy, and maybe I am, but it works for me. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for anybody else, I mean, you have to find what works best for you as a writer. It's just like acting. There's all these schools of thought, schools of methods of acting and everything. And one school or one method isn't going to work for everybody. And you have to find what works best for you. But I really honestly believe if you have faith in yourself, you trust yourself, and you listen to yourself, and you're honest with yourself, you'll know where you are. And then the rest is just putting it out there, getting the feedback from people that you trust. Always make sure your stuff is copywritten before you send it out. That's a huge thing, and register it with the Guild. Some people think you don't need to do both. That's completely up to you. I do both because that's me. But, and then, kind of take it from there, because feedback is good. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, because you don't know what's going through that writer's head, or, I mean, not writer, but the reader, who reads it. You don't know what's going on with them. So I've gotten some phenomenal feedback where I learned a lot. And then there were other times when it was like they praised me in the first paragraph and then they contradicted themselves in the second paragraph. So it's like, well, what's going on here, Yeah,
I hear you.
So, I mean, you have to. I always encourage people who are first starting off, definitely get feedback. Definitely.
I love that advice, and I was, for me as well, I can say, like, it definitely helped me a lot as well. I thought I like all my other I like every single of my screenplay. I thought they were amazing. Then I got feedback, got my ego kicked away, and I saw, okay, they still need some work. Some of them more than others. But I think I should, like, just talking about the new writers, and I think I think a lot of new writers, a lot of aspiring writers, they struggle with the fear of, will they ever make it? Like,
Mhm.
what would you tell to someone like that who maybe has been writing for some time, or like they don't really feel they get resolved, like they kind of maybe like, will this ever happen for me? Maybe it could be someone just starting out and they feel like this is too overwhelming. How can I do this? Like what would you tell someone like that?
First and foremost, I think the most important thing is to be grounded and to realize that, like I said before, it's a muscle that needs to be practiced over and over and over again, which basically comes to the fact that more than likely it's not going to happen right away. You know, um, I've met a lot of people in all areas, but also in writing, that they've got stars in their eyes, you know, and it's a really, really, really hard business. And you've got to practice your craft. You've got to continue. I mean, you may get lucky. I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't happen, but nine time nine times out of 10, it doesn't, you know? And I know a lot of people that have, written like 5, 6, 7 scripts until one hits. And then I know people also that, one script, just because it gets optioned, doesn't mean that it's going to get picked up. Doesn't mean that it's going to be bought, you know? This is a crazy business, and that's what's beautiful about it, and that's what sucks about it. It's like, that's just the way, in my limited experience, that's what it really comes down to. And you just have to not give up and not take the rejection, which you're going to get a lot of, whether it's in festivals or wherever. And not take it personal, because really, in all honesty, they don't know you. So it's not personal. It's quote unquote business, and just because they turn you down, that doesn't necessarily mean that your script is bad. It's like I said before, there's 1,000,001 reasons a producer or, a production company, your script may not be what they're looking for. That doesn't mean that the script isn't bad. That's what I mean by you can't take it personal. It's a whole bunch of lining of factors, finding, somebody who's interested in and wants to make your script, and it's just, there's so much involved, and it's just not giving up and having faith and trusting in yourself and hanging in there.
Just keep going, and just
keep going.
Keep going, and
Exactly.
and find and hope, and one day you'll find the right people. And it's not about you. It's not the script, like just a script. They don't have no idea who you are. And
Exactly.
I love that. It's absolutely incredible listening to you, Chandra. Now, before I ask my final question, where can people find you on social media or somewhere else, maybe?
I'm on Facebook. My name, Chandra Gerson, on all of them, Twitter and Instagram. So.
Yeah, great. Okay, everyone, I think you should go follow her right now. Now, Chandra, what type of story can we expect from you in the future, and why those stories?
Oh, God, I have no idea. That's the most difficult part for me, is trying to come up with an idea. If you're going to ask me, what do you struggle with most? That it's coming up with the idea, and then, out of the blue, something hits. And So I like to write all different types of things, which, I really honestly can't say because I'm not stuck. I don't write just mob movies, or there isn't one particular area. I will tell you that I'm mainly a drama genre. But other than that, I've written feel-good stories to really dark tales, So, I mean, I've got a couple of ideas, but actually right now I'm stuck on one.
I see. And of course, that's
so the
right.
infamous, if you want to call it writer's block or whatever. So I'm just kind of letting it go because I really think that it's important that you don't force yourself. Because if you force yourself, you may end up, most likely going back and reading it and going, why did I waste my time, or whatever. And actually, on that note, also, don't be afraid to stop. Don't be afraid if you get blocked or whatever, because if you have a partially written script and you get another idea for something else, go ahead and go with that one, and because you never know, you may end up using a scene from a different screenplay that you've kind of maybe shelved for a while or whatever, and find a place that fits in with the screenplay that you're working on. That actually happened to me.
Wow.
So, I mean, just hang in there, and I really honestly can't tell you because I don't know myself. I wish I had a crystal ball.
I love that.
I wish I did know.
Well, we all, man. I know I think that was a powerful way to end this interview. Chandra, thank you so much for being here on the show today. For all of you listening, I hope all of you got as much out of this interview as I did. I was actually blown away. I loved it. It was very powerful stuff. And now, if you haven't already, please subscribe and let me and Chandra know in the comment section what your biggest takeaway was from this interview. And until next time, my friends, keep writing.